All right, Class 10 students, welcome. Today, we're going to tackle one of the most fundamental questions in all of biology. How do organisms reproduce? We're going to get into the why, the how, and all the amazing little secrets behind this process. So let's dive right in.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a bit of a puzzle. Reproduction. It's a process that an organism doesn't actually need to do to, stay alive itself. So why even bother?
I mean, really think about that for a second. Things like nutrition, breathing, getting rid of waste, those are the things you have to do to survive, right? They're non-negotiable. But reproduction? An individual organism could live its entire life just fine without it. So why spend all that precious energy on it?
Well, here's the big reveal. It has nothing to do with keeping just one organism alive. It's all about keeping the entire species going. It's about making sure new individuals are created so the whole group continues generation after generation.
Okay, so if the main goal is creating more of the same kind of organism, they all need to have a pretty similar body design. But how does that design get passed on? Well, it all comes down to a kind of master blueprint. And that blueprint is DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. You can think of it like the ultimate instruction manual for building a body, and it's stored safely inside the nucleus of a cell. It contains all the info for making proteins which basically build and run the whole show.
So it totally makes sense, right? The most basic, the most fundamental event in all of reproduction has to be making a copy of that instruction manual, a copy of the DNA.
And it happens in a few key steps. First, the cell makes that second copy of its DNA. Then, it needs to create some extracellular machinery to make sure the new cell has everything it needs. Finally, those two DNA copies pull apart, and the cell itself splits right down the middle, making two new cells. But here's where it gets really interesting. Is that copying process? Is it always perfect? 100% accurate? And what happens if it's not?
The answer might surprise you. It's no. The two new cells are almost never absolutely identical. See, no biochemical reaction is completely perfect. There are always going to be tiny, tiny errors when you copy something that complex. And these little changes, we call them variations.
And this slide really shows why that's so important. If every copy was perfect, you'd have a population where everyone is exactly the same. That's a huge risk. If a new disease or a change in the environment comes along, it could wipe them all out. But with imperfect copies, with variation, you get diversity. Some individuals might have a trait that helps them survive that change. So imperfection actually makes the whole species stronger and more resilient.
So let's dig into this a little more. How exactly do these little mistakes become the ultimate secret weapon for a species to survive in the long run?
And here it is, the absolute key. This built-in tendency for little changes to happen during reproduction, that's the very foundation of evolution. It's the raw material that allows a species to adapt and change over millions of years.
Let's use an example to make it super clear. Imagine you've got this population of bacteria, and they're all perfectly happy living in some nice, temperate water. But now let's say global warming happens, and that water starts to heat up. Well, most of those bacteria are going to die. But just by pure chance, because of those random variations, a few of them might have a trait that makes them slightly resistant to heat. And guess what? They're the ones who survive and get to reproduce.
And this just nails the point, doesn't it? Variation is incredibly useful for the survival of a species over time. It's like an insurance policy. You don't know what the future holds, but having that diversity means there's a better chance someone in the group will be able to handle whatever curveballs get thrown their way.
So, we've talked about the why and the tiny details of what's happening inside the cell. Now let's see how this whole process of copying and dividing actually looks in some of the simplest organisms out there.
For a lot of single-celled organisms, like the amoeba you see here, reproduction is pretty straightforward. It's a process we call fission. Basically, the cell grows to a certain size, copies its DNA, and then just splits in two. And just like that, you've got two new individuals where there used to be one.
All right, so let's just recap the big ideas here. First, DNA copying is the absolute starting point of all reproduction. It's how the blueprint gets passed on. And second, we learned that variation, those little copying mistakes, isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's what gives a species the ability to survive and evolve over time. We really hope this helped clear up the core concepts of reproduction for you. If you're a Class 10 student and you want to really dig deep and master this chapter, A1 Institute is here to help you do exactly that.
Hey,
If you found this explainer useful, it would mean a lot if you'd hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the A1 Institute YouTube channel for more. If you need any help with admission, notes, or guidance, all our contact info is right there in the description below. Thanks so much for watching.